Oftentimes, the greatest enemy of future progress is past success. Today, we continue a two-part conversation that's all about staying hungry and humble as a leader.
Hey, everybody, welcome to part 2 of our conversation on the Echo Leadership Podcast around staying hungry and humble as a leader. My name is David. I'm one of your hosts, and I'm here with Andy Wood, and we're so glad you're joining with us for this conversation today. Now, if you missed the first part, go back, check it out. Part 1, how to stay hungry and humble. But today we're going to jump in and finish this conversation.
Yeah, David, we started this conversation talking about so many of the challenges that leaders face when you have progress. It's easy to look at that progress and think, well, I'm invincible. And that mentality can be very destructive. A lot of times it creeps in, arrogance, pride, selfishness, entitlement creeps in, and it becomes the very hard attitude that causes so many leaders to fall. So I said on that last episode, the vision I have personally with this particular conversation is that this conversation will help some leaders stay grounded and prevent leaders from a future fall.
Yeah, because man, there's nothing worse than when a leader falls in leadership from things that could have been avoided.
Right.
And it creates such a destructive nature. It just hurts even other leaders, organizations in that same area or category. And so we don't want to see that happen at all. Now, before we jump in and finish this conversation, we want to make sure that all of you know who are part of the Echo Leadership Collective that this is your last chance to come join us in person for the Echo Leadership Conference. You don't want to miss it. It's Thursday, May 19th. So this month is the conference, and you've got to head over to echoleadership.org to get your tickets today. Do not delay, all right? Go to echoleadership.org, get your tickets there. Andy, we've been talking about why this matters. Mm-hmm. Can you once again tell us why being in person matters?
Yeah. There's something that happens in the room that doesn't happen on the Zoom. So when
man, I feel like everybody needs to hear that again.
Yeah, we love video, we love technology, and we're using technology right now, but we are made to be together, and then also together with other leaders. There is, when you're in the room with other great leaders like yourself, you're encouraged, you're strengthened, you're inspired, you're equipped, and you're going to walk out of this time with your vision lifted. Your team's going to be more unified, and you're going to get every bit of the investment of your money and your energy, your time that you put into it. You're going to get it back tenfold. It's going to be an incredible day.
Yeah, we've got great speakers lined up to invest in you, your team, and your leadership. We got Louis Giglio, who leads Passion City Church and the Passion Movement, coming out of Atlanta. We've got Hosanna Wong, Grant Skeldon. We've got Andy and Stacy Wood are both going to be speaking at it. We've got other breakouts that are going to be happening that are going to get really practical to help you in your leadership and in your environments where you lead. So head over to echoleadership.org. You'll also see that there are group rates, so you can register a whole group of 10 or more. So bring your team, bring more people, let it be a vision lifter for you. And then as our podcast listeners, you can enter the special promo code ELP10. That's ELP10 to get $10 off the general admission if you're buying tickets there. So we look forward to seeing you in just a couple weeks at the Echo Leadership Conference.
Can't wait.
Yeah, now let's get ready to jump into our conversation today around staying hungry and humble, part 2.
Yeah, I'll start us off with this, what would be the fourth idea, but I'm going to just call it the first idea today, is the idea of going back to school. So we want, as leaders, to help us stay I immediately thought of Billy Madison. I don't know if it was the smile on your face, but do you remember Billy Madison?
I do.
Back to school. Back to school.
Yeah, and there's a lot of people who go, man, I don't want to go back to school. I finished that so I can go lead something.
Yeah, I'm done. But there is something about remaining a student that keeps you grounded. When you become the teacher, and this is one of the things, honestly, David, that I've noticed, that when somebody they excel in a domain, like others start to come to them for wisdom and to have their
Mm-hmm.
questions answered. And it's easy to get to a place where you're like, well, I'm the one with the answers. I'm the one that should always be talking. I'm the one, and then you start to create this mentality as a leader where like you're the expert in the room in every room that you're in.
Mm-hmm.
And great leadership is not built that way. So we want to constantly put ourselves in environments where we're not able to, we're learning, we're growing. We don't have all the answers.
Mm-hmm. That's really good. What are the environments that are most helping you right now in this going back to school idea?
Yeah, I would say there's a couple of things when I reflect that have been super helpful for me. I did CrossFit for a while, and that was really good. It pushed me. I had to train, or I did train. I shouldn't say I had to train. I did train for a marathon. That was really beneficial. I have an executive coach. I've shared this before, who I work with, and they keep me accountable. And that accountability, it puts me in kind of like a student teacher relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And then I like to just pick certain subjects that maybe I'll do a deep dive on. So, for example,
Shoot.
I'm reading right now like on organizational life cycles. So I'm like, okay, how do I do a deep dive on this subject and just pick something that maybe I want to study. I did this with a content marketing one time for a while, but that like picking something that you don't really know, you're not an expert at, and doing a deep dive on it really does stretch you and keeps you grounded as a leader.
Hey, Andy, I've heard you say before too that you feel like you can learn from anybody and in
Mhm.
every environment, every context. I know you said that to us before. So can you unpack a little bit how you view learning from people?
Yeah. Well, I like to think, in every conversation that you're having, it's an opportunity to learn and to grow. Um, this phrase we've used before, a wise person can sit at a table with a fool and learn more from the fool than the fool learns from the wise person. And some of this is just a matter of, asking questions and having a notebook and just seeing the interactions that I have with people, in particular as it comes to leadership, as an opportunity to learn and grow.
Mm. How do you, when you find yourself learning from somebody who sees things drastically different from you,
Hmm.
how do you learn from them, and how does that play into this humble and hungry conversation for you?
Yeah, that's great. So there's this concept called a thinking wavelength, and another person that has something similar, Pat Lencioni, he calls it the genius. Everybody has a working genius, and so a genius sees the world differently than other people,
Mm,
but we all have different forms of genius. So a thinking wavelength is very similar. Like as a 10 would be somebody that they have, they're an idea an hour kind of person, or maybe an idea a day kind of person that they want to pursue. And then there's other people that they're like, they don't have a ton of ideas and they could press the same button all day long. One. Ones are that, and everything in between. Well, you can learn from people when they look at a situation, they see it according to their thinking wavelength. When they look at an
mm,
opportunity, they see it according to their thinking wavelength. So when I'm in a room, I certainly have people that affect me, that have a different impact on me personally when I'm with them. The fives are below or harder, but I still need to learn from them how they think. So I'm like a 7.5 on that thinking wavelength. So I want to learn from people who are all kinds of ideas, and then people that really they prefer just all process all the time.
hmm Yeah, so I think you have to recognize, even when you're in other environments or wherever you are, even somebody does something different, you can learn. And I know you can choose to position yourself to learn. When you walk into another business, another church, you can say, you know what? They're different. There's things I would change immediately, but what can I learn? And you really can. Your mentality walking in shows when you're humble and hungry, because you'll find something to learn.
Yep.
It's really
Yep.
good. Really
Yeah,
good.
the next one is important because it's around your expectation. And so the second one today is to combat entitlement. And what happens is, as you get more responsibility, it tends to work out that perks come with responsibility. So you may get a bigger desk or a bigger office or bigger salary or more help, or you can think of all these things that come as you get more, for lack of better words, climb the corporate ladder. And you can start to get confused by what you deserve and what you're worth. So, like, for example, as a CEO that is leading an organization, they're providing value, and in many instances, they're being compensated according to that value. But there's a difference between what you're worth and what you deserve. And what you and I deserve, for when based on my value system and belief in my own brokenness and my sin, I deserve an eternity apart from Jesus in hell. And that sounds real brutal to say that, especially on a leadership podcast. But that grounds me, because everything after that is grace. Everything after that is a gift from God. And so when I receive what is given to me with gratitude rather than an attitude of I deserve it, it changes my perspective. And sometimes you get used to the perks, you get used to the good things that you're getting as a leader, and you expect them all the time. And that part of you that is the human flesh, that part of all of us that is the flesh, when those things are not there, you can feel entitled. So you have to do things to combat that entitlement. Gratitude, remembering what you've been given. And this really does link into that first idea that we talked about in the last episode.
What role do you think entitlement starts to play in your leadership influence on your team, with your staff, if you start to let that seep in? Have you seen this played out in leaders where it starts to negatively impact their leadership influence?
Yeah. Yeah. Great leaders are obsessed with the mission. And what can happen is that your preference can start to take priority over your purpose. And when your preference is now the mission rather than the mission being the mission, you end up avoiding the necessary sacrifices for the vision to move forward. So then every leader faces this temptation that you're like, well, this is now what I want. This is my mission. These are the things I want. I want for myself. But you have to keep coming back to what is the mission that we're trying to accomplish here. And when I do that, when that's my focus, it's not about my preference. I have to lay down my rights for what I'm called to, and it's a battle. I mean, it's just a part of being a human.
Yeah.
But being honest about it allows you to combat it.
So what are you practically doing that's helping you, combat entitlement in your leadership, where you're saying, man, I really want this, or I wish I could do that, but it's like, maybe it's rooted somewhere. Like, how are you diagnosing that in you? And what is there anything practical that you said, man, I've done this, and that's what I would encourage you with?
Yeah. Well, gratitude is one of the biggest antidotes to entitlement. So particularly writing down what you are grateful for. So putting it in a journal, doing a gratitude walk. I like to go for walks and just thank God for as much stuff as I can. I'll often, in my time where I'm reading the Bible and praying in the morning, I'll write down as many things that I can think of that I'm grateful for. That certainly helps me. I like to think of, as I'm blessed with more margin, as I'm blessed with more resources, and every season's been different, is to say, okay, how can I leverage the margin that I have to be more effective
Mm,
at the mission? So
yeah.
maybe it's that I'm more generous. Maybe it means that I help other people financially. Maybe it means, that I give more stuff away. Sometimes, like for this is really funny for me, but and this maybe is not a great example, but I bought this new mattress that regulates your temperature while you're sleeping. And I did it because I want to get more effective at my job. And it's like I'm trying to pour resources back into being able to do what I'm supposed to do, what I'm called to do better. And so it's like this relentless obsession of like, I'm going to give my best. I'm going to work really hard, and I'm not going to allow the things that have come in as some form of a perk to derail my obsession with the purpose.
Hmm. That's good. I like that mentality of when I've got more, how can I use it to bless and to
Yeah.
lift up and to do another work? Because it takes your eyes off of you versus I just want more. I need more.
Hmm. Yep.
That's really good. So combat entitlement, go back to school. Anything else on these before we move to the third point to help us stay hungry and humble?
Well, one, being humility means to be of the earth. So it means to be like it's basically the idea of being grounded.
Hmm.
And the more I'm aware of my mortality and what I deserve, the more it helps me stay grounded. So your greatness as a leader is, there's this unique tension of you may be a great leader, but you at the same time there are all these warts and brokenness and things in you that are still in process. And just to constantly remember, if not for the grace of God, I would not be where I am today. If not for the grace of God, so many times that He came through. So all the things that come they're a gift to be received with gratitude.
That almost goes back to where we started this conversation in part one. So again, if you missed part one, go back to that last month on we talked about remembering your leadership journey.
Hmm.
And you asked that question, what was the one thing that had to go your way for you to get to where you are today? And if you
Hmm.
remember in that question, it's that same way. You're remembering back. So even like you're saying, you're looking at, man, what did God do? Or what happened in your life where something happened that maybe you didn't deserve. So we can
Hmm.
remember that back, and that keeps us staying humble as well.
Yep, that's really good. Well, let's wrap it up with this last one on doing the hard work. And so the third idea today, and the sixth and final of these two, is to do the work that moves a vision forward. So in any job, you want to be the kind of person that can dream. You want to, as an entrepreneur, you want to dream about the future for your business. As a leader, if you're a pastor, dream about what's ahead to reach more people. But you have to bring together the combination of dreaming big and working or acting small, because it's always a series of smaller decisions and smaller execution, smaller implementation actions that lead to a bigger vision being accomplished. And there's hard work that is required for any job to get done. There's the whirlwind that like everybody lives in that has to be accomplished, but then there are things that you do that really do move the needle or get the ball down the field. And so much of your groundedness and my groundedness as leaders is to be able to be aware of those things that are the hard work of leadership and keep my feet planted to do the work.
So when we think about even the quote that we started this conversation with, the greatest enemy of your future progress is past success. And when you look at doing the hard work, a lot of leaders may be thinking, well, Andy, it's the hard work that got me the success. They got me here. So when you say, I'm talking to a successful leader, they're like, I work 12 hours a day. How would you speak into them about this do the hard work in regards to hungry and humble? Like, is there a different way that we want to think about hard work? Is there a different place that maybe we need to work harder versus just I'm grinding?
Yeah. I would primarily be thinking about quality over quantity with this. So, it's not a matter of, oh, I'm going to work 80 hours a week. It's like, actually, you probably can get a lot more done in 45 really good hours of work than you can in 80 hours. I don't know anybody that's designed to work that much other than Pat Gelsinger, the CEO of VMware, or now the CEO of Intel, who's one of the highest capacity people on the face of the planet. Like, he can work that hard and he kills it, and he's a great leader. But I mean, for most of us, it's like, man, if I can work 45, 50 hours a week and do a really good job with it, and focus my energy. And again, this is hard for me. I love to work. But I do find that the quality of my work begins to suffer as the quantity of my work goes past diminishing returns. So if I go, I would say for me, probably that threshold's around 50 or so, 50 to 55. When I go much past that, I start to become less effective.
Do you think that leaders then, they push themselves too far, and that's usually what sets them up for the fall? They're like, I am working hard, but they push themselves too far.
I think that the bigger issue is maybe not having the boundaries to say this is where work stops. Like, okay, well, there are boundaries in play, whether it's days that are off or it's times of the day that I'm not going to work, or times where I'm getting refreshed and going to the Echo Leadership Conference, or things that I'm doing to like actually put boundaries in place with my work to say, okay, this is how far work can come. And, it's just our culture and what we have in terms of the technology right now leans us towards always on, never slowing down. So, it's funny that we're going the direction of rest, but I have had a hard time recently turning it off. So I had to get myself back like a good novel type book that I can read to help me turn it off. Because if I don't, like, I can't sleep. My mind is constantly working. But then, the hard work also is, on that flip side, is prioritizing your energy to say, okay, these are like the top 3 things I'm going to get done today that will drive the needle, that will move the vision forward. And it's the combination of all of that. It's like, okay, I'm creating boundaries, but then when I work, I'm going to be fully engaged with the work that I'm getting accomplished.
That's really good. I know you have a question as well on doing the hard work, where you would also say, like, it's not just the hard work of my job and my leadership, it's also the hard work of my character.
Right.
And those play together in this conversation in my leadership. So would you speak to that for a leader, like, about the hard work of the character?
Yeah, there's hard attitudes. There are things that creep in that require therapy and correction, accountability, and oftentimes what we call repentance, which is like basically turning from a way of life or a way of thinking that is not helpful. It's renewing our minds. But there is like the process of pulling the weeds out of our thinking and pulling the weeds out of our hearts, that it is hard work. And it's easy to let off the gas. It's easy to settle for what has been or where you currently are.
Yeah.
But, when you have a vision that there's more that God wants to do in you, there's more that God wants to do through you, then that pushes you to say, okay, well, I certainly don't want me, and I certainly don't want my character or the foundation that I have to stand in the way of what it is that God really does want to do through my life. He determines the breadth of my influence, but I get to determine the depth of my character with my obedience back to him. And so I want to do the hard work to lay the foundation that as God is building on that it can sustain what he builds.
Yeah, that's good. And your hard work in your job really can come out of your character. It's a work ethic.
And that really does play into the whole concept that we talked about with the wake, that there's a wake that follow us, the wake of responsibility, the wake of relationships. And somebody who's integrated with their life, the places that they go, there's a consistency in what they leave behind them, but they make the things that they impact or the things that they connect with better. The people that they interact with are better. The things that they do with work are better. But it doesn't happen without a level of hard work on a personal level.
That's great. Well, Andy, this has been a great conversation on being hungry and humble, because we want to make sure in our leadership we last and go the distance. And is there any last words you want to say to anybody on making sure that they can stay hungry and humble?
I want to read this quote that my executive coach, Kelly Bird, he sent this to me. And it says, a good enough life, settling for the life you're stuck with, is actually what makes people drink too much, hide too much, fight too much, and become bitter. Sick and live and live in quiet desperation until they lay their head on their deathbed one day and wonder, what kind of life might I have created if I'd just been braver? So be brave and be willing to stay hungry and humble as a leader. And this conversation is so crucial. And so if you've made it all the way through, way to go. This whole long hour of content on staying humble and hungry. And I want to just offer let's do the 5 free giveaways to people who made it through. Because Brad Lomenick, one of our good friends, and somebody who's helped us out tremendously, has a book called Hungry, Humble, Hustle, the H3 or 3H leadership. And so we'll give out 5 free copies of that book to the first 5 people that let us know that they made it through.
All right. So, hey, the way that you can let us know that you made it through is go ahead over to echo.church/leadership podcast. You can drop in the comments right there or drop in to send us a note. You can also reply back to the email if you're on our email list. Now, let me make sure you know how you can be notified of every episode that's coming out. Again, go to echo.church/leadership podcast. You can drop in your email right now and download the leader guide to go along with this talk and sign up to be notified. We'll send you a note there. Just reply back to us. Go over and drop it in the info form at echo.church/leadership podcast that you made it all the way through. And the first 5 are going to get a copy, as Andy said, of H3 Leadership by Brad Lomenick. So we hope that is a great encouragement to you. And we look forward to seeing you each month here as we release a brand new episode on the Echo Leadership podcast. And don't forget to go right now to echoleadership.org and sign up to come join us at the Echo Leadership Conference. Look forward to seeing you then, and we look forward to seeing you on a future release of the Echo Leadership podcast.